Shabbat Shalom. It's really a delight to be here with all of you tonight. I'll start tonight with a story. Once during a trip to Israel, I had the opportunity to visit with a Bedouin community in the south. We took a long bus ride into the desert until we reached a settlement that gave new meaning to the phrase middle of nowhere. We enjoyed a tea ritual with the residents as the sun went down, and then as night fell, we got to experience in awe as a blanket of stars emerged. It was incredible. In a place with no light pollution, the brightness of the stars was overwhelming. We could see so many, certainly more than I'd ever seen outside of a planetarium before. Each of us laid on our back there in the Negev desert, face up at the stars, taking it all in. We were quiet. It was akin to the feeling that happens with a heavy snowfall. There was a quiet weightiness that fell over us. And then, of course, I remembered we were in the middle of the desert, and I started to feel a little bit afraid. Were there animals? Are there scorpions in the Negev? I wasn't sure. Were we safe? It got me thinking about how, if we're lucky, so much of our lives are built around safety and protection. How safe in the modern day often aligns with well-lit, a safe parking lot, a safe walk home from transit, a safe neighborhood. We're in a stage now where light pollution obscures so much of our night sky that true darkness is almost impossible to find if you're living really anywhere near other people with access to artificial light. It's almost like darkness is now optional, something hard to find. In this week's Torah portion, Bo, we read about how God demonstrates God's power by afflicting the Egyptians with a plague of darkness. We read, "Then Adonai said to Moses, 'Hold out your arm toward the sky, that there may be darkness upon the land of Egypt, a darkness that can be touched.' Moses held out his arm toward the sky, and thick darkness descended upon all the land of Egypt for 3 days. People could not see one another, and for 3 days no one could move about, but all the Israelites enjoyed light in their dwellings." Our sages, of course, wonder about the quality of this darkness. What is a darkness you can feel, a darkness that can be touched? Egyptologists remind us that because the Egyptians worshipped the sun, this sort of plague would have been emotionally devastating to them. A darkness so thick it was immobilizing would have been a sign of weakness and fallibility on the part of their sun god, and a true show of the power of the God of the Israelites. Following Nahum Sarna's reading, the impotence of the Egyptian supreme God was exposed, thus foreboding imminent doom. Some of our sages, like the Ramban, Nachmanides, emphasize how miraculous, in his meaning unnatural, this darkness was, in that it disabled not just sunlight, but also candlelight. There was simply no way for the Egyptians to penetrate through the darkness. One of my favorite modern scholars, Dr. Aviva Gottlieb-Zornberg, teaches this. She says, "There's something about the plague of darkness, about the way it reduces the human being to a blind and paralyzed vulnerability that defies rational or moral explanation. In this kind of darkness," she says, "repentance, teshuvah, becomes impossible because there is no possible response to the terror of such a condition." There was no way to see the humanity or to hold space for relationships. It was just simply too dark. Or HaChaim, an 18th century scholar, teaches the darkness of the Egyptians is described, interestingly, in individual terms. Lo ra'u ish et achiv, a person did not see his brother. Ulechol b'nei Yisrael haya or b'moshvotam, for all the children of Israel there was light in their dwellings. He comments on this word ulechol. No matter what, a Jew had light. Whenever a Jew went into the house of an Egyptian, he still had light even within the dwellings of an Egyptian. The light of the Israelites is communal. How deeply this resonates at this season of our lives. The light of the Israelites is communal. Even in the face of the tangible, thick darkness, wherever the Israelites went, they had light. Our colleague, Rabbi Lucy Dinner, teaches, freezing the Egyptians in darkness for 3 days while the Israelites enjoyed light, this 9th plague imposes a hiatus in Egyptian mastery that gives the Israelites a little taste of the liberation to come. This temporary reprieve from slavery strengthens the Israelites' confidence and makes them eager for freedom. In some ways, then, we read this plague of darkness as a first sample of freedom for the Israelites. They continue to glow. They start dreaming, what does a future look like for our community? It's interesting that as they make their way, the Israelites will follow God as God appears to them by day as a pillar of cloud and at night as a pillar of fire. Our tradition has so much to say about darkness beyond this plague. Our Jewish day begins in the evening as light merges into darkness. We have a whole liturgy of prayers to say before bed, including a prayer of confession just in case we die, the Shema, Hashkivenu, and a prayer invoking the presence of God's angels around us to help us sleep safely. There's even a midrash about the creation of fire. I love this midrash. Rabbi Levi said in the name of Rabbi Zeira, as the sun set at the conclusion of the first Shabbat, darkness began approaching, and Adam, the first human being, became afraid. Quoting the verse, I said that darkness will envelop me, valayla or ba'adeni, night for me is light, from the book of Psalms. The serpent is now coming to confront me. He's afraid. So what does the Holy One do? God prepares Adam 2 stones of flint, and Adam strikes them one against the other. Light emerges from these stones, and he recites a blessing over it, and that is why it is written, valayla or ba'adeni, night for me is light. And the sages say, what blessing did he recite over it? Baruch atah Adonai, borei peri ha'esh. Blessed is the one who creates the lights of fire. Our ancient sages and early liturgists understood how scary the darkness of night is, how vulnerable we are when it's dark. And so I think it is today. Today, to even find actual darkness, we have to go out into the world, into the wild, away from people, away from our community and the ones who live beside us. I think this lesson of distance is contained in Torah as well. Just a few verses after the plague of darkness is announced, Moses and Pharaoh have another interaction. We read, Adonai stiffened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not agree to let them go. Pharaoh said to Moses, be gone from me. Take care not to see me again, for the moment you look upon my face, you shall die. And Moses replied, you've spoken rightly. I will not see your face again. Is this another plague of darkness? Is the finality of the relationship, a separation between two people, a different kind of immobilizing, tangible darkness? When I think about the way we describe our lived experience in these difficult times, I often hear people calling these dark days. The darkness is deeper than the tragedies we see around the world. The darkness is the way we lose sight of the human beings right in front of us. When we dehumanize other people, when we lose sight of the sacred divinity held within each living soul, we increase the darkness in the world. When our perspective is entirely inward-facing, we add to the darkness of the world. But I think there's an antidote. There's a way to penetrate the darkness. I'm thinking back to Dr. Zornberg's teaching about the impossibility of repentance in the face of that disorienting, immobilizing darkness. So for me, the antidote includes being open to the process of repentance. It's finding opportunities to come face to face with people outside of my own community, people who share a different worldview. It's connecting. It's hearing stories even when they're difficult to hear, that push me to consider my own perspective, my own place of privilege and power. The antidote is in humanizing the other. This is Or Ba'adeni, light for me. As I conclude my remarks tonight, I offer these words of the poet Adrienne Rich. In those years, people will say we lost track of the meaning of we, of you. We found ourselves reduced to I. And the whole thing became silly, ironic, terrible. We were trying to live a personal life, and yes, that was the only life we could bear witness to. But the great dark birds of history screamed and plunged into our personal weather. They were headed somewhere else, but their beaks and pinions drove along the shore, through the rags of fog, where we stood saying, I. May we find ways to penetrate the darkness around us. May we push ourselves to see past ourselves and to use the glow of our community to make the world a brighter and more just place. May we each be seekers of light in the sky, in the world, and in each other. Valayla or ba'adeni, may we find light in the darkness. Ken yehi ratzon, may this be God's will.